Welcome to episode number 5 of the State of the Fights podcast. I am one of the hosts, Ian Copey. Along my side here is none other than Jaden Harper. How you doing today, Jaden?
Pretty good, pretty good. Phillies in first place by 5 games, so cannot complain.
Cannot complain at all. 4-2 on this current road trip so far. Started out great. Past 2 Cincinnati games, real stinkers. Not much else you can say about them, for sure. Jaden, what do you think so far of this road trip from what we've seen?
I think it's been a very good road trip for the Phillies. Obviously, at some point, we knew they were going to slow down a little bit. And, losing 2 games to a good team isn't an issue because Cincinnati is a team that could be in the playoffs. They have good starting pitching. And the Phillies could easily gotten swept in the series. But again, these types of series happen. They can't drown on it, wait on it. They gotta get ready, get back to playing, and clear it from their heads so they could get a good series in Washington and increase their division lead against the Mets, and even get closer and closer and try to create separation in between them and the NL West leading Padres in that 3-2 seed battle race. But what I think the biggest thing is from these past 6 games has been a little bit of inconsistency on the offensive side for the Phillies, and then the bullpen in Cincinnati really in the last game kind of fell apart. But besides that, I would say the Phillies have had a really good past 6 games considering they played. They've had a really productive last 6 games.
For sure, for sure. I think it's a big shout out to the bottom of the order. They pretty much won about all the games in Texas for us. When you had Max Kepler coming up with that big hit on Saturday. Bryson Stott came up with a few hits. Harrison Bader making the plays on defense alongside who else showed up big in these games? Brandon
Brandon
Marsh
Marsh 4-hit
got
game
his
on Friday.
4-hit game there. Hasn't been much since then, but hey, he's doing a job. And then the Johan
And
Duran
Mundo had a
effect.
big hit in Texas. I remember that.
Yeah, he had the big home run, and I think you're seeing the Jahan Duran effects. He's coming in, pushing everybody down to a consistent spot. Probably doing these guys some favors with the, with their position in the bullpen now. They only gave up 1 run, I believe, in about 12 and almost 12 innings of work out there in Texas. So big shout out to them. That was a great team win, especially when the top of the order did not do much for. I mean, besides Schwarber's leadoff home run on the Friday game, and obviously you had Trey's big hit later in the day. Besides that, it was all just mostly bottom of the order coming up with the big hits. I could have seen this script before. We're in past series this season on the road. These could have been some 2-1 or like that Pittsburgh series. Just those ugly, lifeless offense losses where, damn, starting pitcher got wasted. But no, sometimes you just whoever's going to get the job done, and that's the case we saw there in Texas. And then
hmm
even it carried over to Cincinnati that first night, which again, you love to see it. And then since then, it has died off. And as you said, yes, get ready for this upcoming series in Washington. Tonight's game on Thursday, the Phillies have had 2 games this year, Friday night away games, from road trips on back-to-back night games, where they came in late, I guess, from bad scheduling the night before, and they came out lifeless the next day. I'd hope that's not the case because I assume they probably got to Washington by midnight last night and not like 3 a.m. like they did these other games. But I think obviously you want to get 3 out of 4 this series, bare minimum. The Nationals, I mean, again, they no fired manager. I haven't been able to pay attention to them. Normally, they've really been worth paying attention to so far this season. Ever since they fired Davey Martinez, who knows what these guys. It's still a group of players. They might want to come out hungry. I hope this is not a series, kind of like the Chicago White Sox series, where they just bad approach, bad everything, and they were almost lulled and played down the competition. This is stuff I remember happened a lot in the Joe Girardi era. I remember seeing Ricky Battaglia getting so mad, like you're just throwing your gloves and your bats out on the field, thinking you'll win the game that way. I really hope we don't see that this series in Washington.
And even if we do, though, it's not the end of the world. Even if the Phillies split in Washington, I don't think that's a bad series for the Phillies because Washington is a competitive team, and it's harder to beat divisional teams because you see them so much throughout the season. Though it's less than what it used to be, you still see them a very solid amount throughout the 162 games. The Phillies, all they have to do is just play the ball They know how to play. But if they lose this series, I'd rather them lose a series like this than lose a series against the Mets in a couple weeks or lose a series to Seattle. Teams that we're actually going to see in the postseason, that it really shows how we match up against the good teams. Obviously, the Phillies have played down to their competition over the years. They did Chicago earlier. The Angels have been playing good baseball recently, but they lost a series to them as well this in the second half. But I think the Phillies, realistic is 3 out of 4, but a split is not the end of the world for the Phillies.
Not ideal, but yeah, not the end of the world. I find it's more just a leadership criticizer when I see a team come out looking like it looks like spiritually like no, they weren't out there to like, oh, we're coming in here to crush this team. No, they were like, no, we'll get in here and we'll beat this team like this that easily. I believe that's more, yeah, as I said, a leadership criticizer, which I'd be a little upset with Rob Thompson as if hey, he just kind of looked over the Washington Nationals because hey, you still need to win these games. And yes, obviously that Mets series coming up, you want to win that, but I just want to figure out win the games. It's August now. I think I if it was April, I would have had a different approach, but it's August now. You got to win the games that you need to, and it's a low hanging fruit. Don't look over it because again, Nationals gritty team. Who knows what they'll do?
I think they know. They have to attack Washington because, like you said, they're a gritty team, and they have good starters in their rotation. They have tonight is Brad Lord on the mound. He has a 3.28 ERA. He had a start in Philly against the Phillies, and he kind of really had a good game against us. Then tomorrow is Mackenzie Gore. So those are their two best starters back to back days against us. And then Cade uh, Cavalli, who also had a pretty good start in his comeback, his first two comeback starts. So those three starts are not easy starts for the Phillies. Sunday game gets a little easier, but those first three, Washington's putting out good starting pitching, but so is the Phillies. So if the Phillies just go in with, their eye on the prize and get the job done, winning 3 out of 4, which is what I think everyone expects them to do, I feel like it'll be a successful series.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you pointed out we faced Mackenzie Gore. He's had his up and down start season, but when he's on, I still think the Nationals could make a build around him, maybe as a potential number two starter in their future. One a point that I've seen recently is that how much this Phillies team struggles against elite left-handed pitching. I may have made this point in our last episode. Like we saw them, they get farmed for the first 6 innings by Tarek Skubal, and you just look down the list of good left-handed pitchers they've faced this year. I mean, Andrew Abbott also was doing incredible against them, and on Wednesday on the other game earlier this Cincinnati series. And even Mackenzie Gore on opening day struck out 13 of us. Obviously, had the shadows, and it was opening day. Almost a different team back then. But this is essentially almost a bit of a concern. Like when I see, oh, could they, if the Phillies get matched up in the playoffs against a like the Cubs, who have back-to-back good lefties, they could start right there. I think could that be a little bit of a demoralizer for the Phillies? Like, hey, like all of a sudden, if they cannot figure out a way to solve some good left-handed pitching. Like find a good game plan against these guys. I think you could be looking at a little bit of a kryptonite that you might see in the playoffs. We saw the Mets do that to them last year in Game 1 of the NLDS. They kind of, I didn't expect know how Rob Thompson to kind of see that coming. Where they started Senga, his first game in months, took him out for 2 innings. Then you got 5 innings of David Peterson, and you got one run in 7 innings out of there. So obviously, again, that was just my point about left-handed pitching. I'd hope they find a way to beat Mackenzie Gore, but hopefully this is another concern I'd address going into later into the season because it could be a little kryptonite that might get poached.
Well, I feel like the advantage with the Phillies, what they're coming into in the National League, is that there's not that many left-handed starters that they're going to see in the postseason. Like you said, there's Chicago. Phillies faced Matthew Boyd earlier this year in Citizens Bank Park. 6 one-run innings, but he didn't strike out a single batter. Phillies had 8 hits in that outing, so they haven't faced Amaga yet this year. Really, I try to think, and that's really all the lefties the Phillies are going to face in the postseason unless Cincinnati gets in. The Mets have been struggling. David Peterson, I was there last night watching him. He couldn't locate any of his pitches to the point where the Braves scored 9 runs in 1 inning against the Mets. So the Dodgers don't really have any left-handed starters besides Kershaw. and maybe the Phillies will see Kershaw later in the season when they go back out to LA. And it all depends on when the Phillies are going to be able to get hot. It also depends on who on the bench is going to be able to contribute against left-handed hitting. So that's the big keys. If the righties can really, like, especially the ones that come off the bench, if they could contribute against left-handers, I think it'll put the Phillies in a really good position. You saw Marsh this past weekend in Texas. He had a couple hits against lefty relievers. I think that's a good sign where he should probably be in the lineup every day.
For sure. I think you have a bunch of guys. Like, obviously, I made this point about platooning last episode, how I don't believe it helps hitters' confidence. And I think, yeah, has Marsh turned it into a guy like, here, no, he'll find a way to hit off these left-handers. I would say you give him shots against these left-handed pitchers that don't specialize against left-handed batters, because you will find those left-handed pitchers out there who will know how to just completely farm down and like opponent's average against a left-handed batter will be like sub 200. I think if you're facing a pitcher like that, I would pull back Marsh in that situation. But besides that, no, I would like to see Marsh play almost every day more often. There's a lot of guys I'd rather on this team see play more often that I believe are just turning into victims of platoons. Obviously, it was the opposite of that case this past weekend. But how do you know that's not going to happen later in the season? Where Max Kepler, hey, this is your first at bat or no, first start in 2 days. How is he going to be able to come up in the right situation?
Yeah, you make a good point there. But, I think we saw it this past weekend in Texas where the platooning worked out for the Phillies. Max Kepler came in. He had some really good hits this weekend. Some got down, some didn't. Very hard hits, hard contact, solid contact. And they did get down, but I feel like he had a pretty good weekend in Texas as well. I can't really say any of the Phillies outfielders had a bad weekend in Texas. Obviously, Cincinnati series uh, happened for what it was. It wasn't a good series for really anybody, but I feel like Texas was one of the best series of the years one of the best series of the year for the Phillies when it comes to where everything felt like it was clicking for the team and at the right moments when between the bullpen, the starting pitching, and the lineup, everything was clicking for the Phillies in Texas.
Yes, definitely. Now you said there was a great outing for pretty much all our outfielders except for one big guy in right field, Nick Castellanos, uh, reported missing for about a good week or two now. Uh, you've seen the point this season about clearly uh, bottom of the line defender, and his bat was no longer now above average. His OPS already down to 706 and 256 average on the season. If you look at his splits there, that's 177 in his last 20 games. And it doesn't get much better the further you go back. 5 for his last 39. This dude, Rob Thompson, continues to play him as an everyday starter. I get why. He's the big guy, leader. It's almost essentially a leader on the team. I'd say he's a great teammate, but it gets to the point like, all right, how much do you consider benching Nick Castellanos more often when you got Bader, who's been doing all right since he came here? I think he's handled his platoon role pretty well so far for a guy that was already an everyday starter, and Brennan Marsh, and obviously Nick Castellanos struggled mightily against right-handed pitching. I'm getting sort of sick of seeing this guy. Obviously, no, you're not going to get rid of him at this point in the season. You really just can't after the deadline. Maybe if it was before the deadline and it was something stupid was happening with him, maybe. But obviously, no. Nick Castellanos, he's obviously going to be on the playoff roster. It's just a question: what are we going to get out of this guy? Could he potentially try to wake back up and at least start contributing to the team right now? Because obviously, bottom tier defender and bottom tier bat, you're getting nothing out of him right now.
Well, I'd rather him be struggling now than in October. I'd rather see him be in a slump right now than he gets into a slump in October. And that's just, I'm fine with throwing Castellanos out there every day. When you consider a guy who has a career 800 OPS, I the Phillies, obviously, and me as a fan, I would trust him to go out there every day. Even if he's struggling, he provides some sort of value to the team. And he will, once he gets back into the swing of things, it will help the team tremendously. At the end of the day, you got to let someone like him, he has to work out the kinks himself. Sometimes that has to come playing every day. Does that mean keeping him in the fifth hole? I don't know. I don't know how you want to structure lineup. Do you move Bader up to the fifth hole? Or you put Cassie in, 6 or 7, depending on, where you want to put Alec Bohm when he comes back within the next week. but Nick Castellanos is going to be on this team for the rest of the season. He's going to be a starter on the team for the rest of the season. And there's a good chance that Nick Castellanos is going to be in Philadelphia next season. And that's just the truth because he is a very good player at the end of the day. All players go through slumps. He's in a big slump right now, but knowing Castellanos, knowing the value he's provided to this team over the 4 years he's been in Philadelphia, he has shown he's gotten the grace, he's earned the grace to be able to play every day, work out the slumps and kinks in his swing. And he's also showed that he has been a guy who, even if he's struggling, he'll come up in the big moments. When you look at the Phillies, when it comes to offensively, the last two postseasons, he's been the guy to step up when the Phillies have needed him the most, besides the 2023 NLCS. So it's really hard to say that Castellanos isn't, a valuable player to the team because he is. And I know he'll show it at some point. All players go through struggles. I think he'll be fine.
For sure, I think yeah, you obviously made the point. Slump now instead of later, and I can agree with that for now. Obviously, yeah, he'll be on the team next year. I think he'll probably finish out his contract here. And I mean, obviously, you look at his Statcast page. It's not ideal to say the least. He's almost in the bottom third percentiles for a lot of offensive categories this season. But again, as I said, if he can just get the hits and find a rhythm in, let's say, yeah, October, and probably last longer than just being a division series merchant, then sure, yeah, he'll be the value we need for this team. Yeah, but honestly, I don't think he'll find his way off the team anytime soon. But yeah, if we can just whatever we can squeeze out of him, would be great. Great so far.
At the end of the day, you said LDS merchant, but I'm fine with him being that because at the end of the day, the Phillies shouldn't be losing a championship series just because of Nick Castellanos. That's what happened in 2023 because everybody else kind of uh, shut off. Basically, they already went into vacation mode for Game 6 and 7. So I'm fine with Castellanos having a really bad NLCS, especially if he has a good NLDS, because everyone else needs to step up on the team, and that's just what it is. And the Phillies have to figure that out coming into October. How can they stay consistent like they did in 22? How can they stay consistent to keep playing good baseball throughout the whole postseason, including into if they have to play into November.
Definitely not. I can't say I would be fine with Nick Castellanos going 0 for 22 in a playoff series again. Yeah, I don't think you can really have anybody who's going to be in your top, even I would say anybody in your lineup really that can be like that. Because sometimes you'll get to the point, hey, you're back against the wall. If they're finding out a way, no, we're going to pitch around, guy. Like this is what happened in that series. They pitched around Schwarber, they pitched around Harper, and they had to boot Casty down in the lineup. I would not want to like if he falls off in the NLCS again, that would be a very bad look. And if we lose, I would say that is a it's not the whole entire blame why they lost that series, but it's a critical one. And when you have a bat that's coming up there and producing, getting almost literally nothing for you in the playoffs, that's just not that is a losing formula right there. Especially when you've seen the world champions in the past few years, they've had guys like it's their bottom of the lineup guys that come up. It's not just their big power hitters. Shohei Ohtani wasn't much of a headliner in the postseason last year, but it ended up being Gavin Lux getting big hits for the Dodgers. So yeah, end of the day, I no, you still need this guy. I still want him. Like you need to get hits, and you don't hit, you don't win. So obviously, no, you do need to get some sort of production out of him in all playoff series. Obviously, he doesn't have to. It can even out at some point, but no, you cannot just be go 7 for 17 unless say yeah, 4 game division series, then 0 for 22 in NLCS. That would be unacceptable.
Yeah, and you know, it could happen. It might not happen, but I definitely think Castellanos just needs to play through these current struggles, and then I feel like we cross the bridge when we get there when it comes to the playoffs. But I know he's actually going to show up for at least one series because he was really the only Philly offensively to show up in last year's postseason.
Yeah, that was the thing out here. I was at Cincinnati Bank Park for that game 2 home run. That was sick, uh, incredible play. So yeah, as it goes on, I think he can find his way. Just try, yeah, get on base and work something out for what finishes out to be what's been so far this year a rough season for him. But whatever we can get out of him, I will gladly take it. Think of a next point though is another struggling Philly who's fallen off in the second half. Ranger Suarez, the guy he's defined as a pitcher, and the exact opposite of what's defined as a thrower. Obviously, he had a game in Cincinnati the other day. He was cruising along great, being really efficient. Marbles all fell apart for him. His start in Baltimore on the final game in Baltimore, Philly's last home game, 6 and 1/3 innings, five earned runs, not really ideal. And then go back even is 3 earned runs against Detroit. That was pretty good. Gleyber Torres was the only guy to get to him, but still settled in pretty nicely. Yankee Stadium didn't do too bad in the Phillies 9-4 win on that Saturday game. And then obviously before this All-Star break had that another decent start in San Diego. So it's honestly a sense of it's second half Ranger Suarez. We've seen this story for multiple years now. Dude was a almost All-Star game starter first go around. 15 or so starts, kicks in, reverts back to just a regular left-handed pitcher, not the elite guy putting up these crazy starts almost every week. What do you think so far about Ranger Suarez in the second half?
I mean, it's something we've seen over the past, well, I would say, the last 2 years about Ranger. I think more of it's probably injuries, because you've seen his velocity has gone down since 2023. It's gone down each year. Went down last year. Now it's gone even further down this year. Over his last 7 games, he has a 5.58 ERA, and that's just not winning baseball. I mean, the Phillies are 1-4 in his last 7 starts. There's something I think maybe a phantom IL is needed to get Ranger back to where he needs to be, because he is not where he usually is right now. And for him, I think he'll be fine, but I do think this kind of hurts his free agency, as he's about to go in this upcoming offseason.
Definitely, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, if it does hurt his free agent market, I think it would have been an identifier. This is a reason why you can sort of think, all right, you got to go to the bullpen now, buddy. If you looking last year, end of the season, he had just mainly out of these 5 inning starts where it was just 4 earned runs, 3 earned runs. Yeah. So obviously he could still be ideal. And he has been the guy in October. He had the one start. Um, he started game 4, had that really efficient outing where he just could not. His defense didn't do himself many favors that game. But obviously he was still came up in the moment to, hey, no, I'm going to help get you out of this game here. So, but obviously, I think he will be probably our game 3 starter. Let's say.
See, I don't
Sorry, I'm
know.
pausing.
It's hard with the game 3 and game 4. The game 1 and game 2. I would feel more confident with Aaron Nola starting a game 3 than Ranger Suarez. And that's not saying Ranger Suarez can't. It's just Aaron Nola has more experience in the postseason. He's been in Philly for longer. He's produced in Philly for longer. I feel like we kind of know what we get with Aaron Nola. And obviously, we'll see with Nola once he comes back if he is the guy we saw at the beginning of the year, or is he, the guy he's been in his rehab outings, who's been, what Aaron Nola usually looks like. I feel like that's the question. The 3 and 4 is going to be something that's decided right before game 3 of the NLDS, because then you have 2 other guys in Jesus Luzardo and Taijuan Walker who also could be starters in the postseason. It's just a really, really hard decision that Rob Thompson and the Phillies are going to have to make, but it's a decision you want to have to make when it comes to how good your pitching staff is.
Yes, for sure. When I look at, I mean, Aaron Nola, his last playoff start, game 3 of that Mets series was not anywhere close to ideal. 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 8 strikeouts in 5 innings, 2 home runs given up and 2 walks. I think obviously right now, Aaron Nola being the veteran, yes, you want him as your game 3 starter. Now, it obviously depends on how he looks. If he's out here still chucking, just doesn't have his command at all, because he's essentially the command pitcher now, being with his velocity down, which you can work with. But if he's not the guy that's on Aaron Nola, that's not on point. It's almost I would say like Taijuan Walker last year. No, you cannot start. Now you don't even put him on the playoff roster. But now, obviously, said Taijuan Walker, Jesus Luzardo. I think Luzardo might be the first guy to go to the bullpen when you need him. And so I see probably same with Taijuan Walker right there. And I mean, Taijuan been great so far this season. Really applauded his work ethic to get back to the guy that we were essentially wanted to sign. But yeah, as we said, Aaron Nola versus Ranger Suarez, that game 3 starter. Luckily, that decision doesn't have to be made right now, and time will evaluate and show us when he's happened. I do agree that maybe Ranger Suarez does need a phantom IL stint just to get himself back in the swing of things. I look back again on his season last year. He didn't really have much. He did have that one IL stint when he actually got hurt, but besides that, no, he's been like a consistent starter most of the way. That really got a real break. He only had that 1 month gap, and it didn't see much of a difference in production after that.
And yeah, and obviously in between now and our next podcast episode, so the next 7 games for the Phillies, there will have to be a roster move made. Well, 2 roster moves made when it comes to pitching, because both Aaron Nola and then Jose Alvarado will both be back by that point. So the question is, who do you move? Is that Jordan Romano? Is that Joe Ross? Is that, you put Ranger on the IL? Is that you put Zach Wheeler on the IL? What is the corresponding move the Phillies will make here? Because it is definitely going to be interesting to see what they decide to do when it comes to how they manage the moves they're going to have to make with their roster with this, with the playoff push upcoming. Because like the Phillies have an easy schedule in September. They're playing good teams in September. They have to go to Milwaukee for 3 games. They swept the Phillies earlier this season, and they have the best record in Major League Baseball. The Marlins have been really pesky. Phillies have to play them 6 times in September. Obviously, you have the Mets. They're the Mets. That's a 4-game series. Kansas City's having a good year. That's a 3-game series. You go to the Dodgers. They've been disappointing, but they're still the Dodgers. That's a 3-game series. So that stretch right there, that could easily trip up the Phillies. So depending on how they manage the roster, especially with September call-ups right around the corner, it'll be interesting to see how they do this upcoming weekend and next week, beginning of the week, the roster moves they decide to make.
Agreed for sure. I think when after the Zach Wheeler, he's seeing his velocity way down. Still managed pretty well, but you could tell that shoulder. I'm not sure I'm comfortable the condition it's in. I was thinking, yeah, his corresponding move, Phantom IL for an Aaron Nola is a Phantom IL stint for Zach Wheeler. I think that could do himself a favor, and then just get him set for the time when we need him because we have starters to fill in, and then also you have I think I said Jose Alvarado. I don't believe it'll be Jordan Romano that they cut because they might be bringing back Jordan Romano for that playoff roster spot when because obviously Jose Alvarado is ineligible to play in the playoffs this season. So and Jordan Romano, yeah, he had the grand slam last night. It wasn't. I say it was a sort of an unlucky inning for him. It wasn't the worst. When I look at his pitches, it wasn't the worst we ever got of him. Luckily, I believe the front office believes that no, he is a pitcher that can. He's gotten unlucky. You look at his 7.24 ERA, but you look at all of his outings here. It's just like he either has it or he doesn't. So, well, yeah, when he gives up these big outings, I don't think that's the Jordan Romano will get even the chance to see in the playoffs where he's gonna can blow a game. He won't be put in that position. He's gonna get like the least important moments. Let's say.
Yeah, I would agree. And with Romano, like we talked about this on another episode, like you just said, he's been very good, but when he's bad, it's ugly. You know what I mean? And he's had a lot of scoreless outings, but then there's the blow up outings like there was last night, and that's why his ERA is so high. Like you said, I think the Phillies should definitely be keeping Romano on their postseason roster. No, like just on their roster in general, because he can be a value piece when it comes down the stretch, especially considering he has pitched in the postseason before. So it's like this is a guy who has never had postseason experience. This is someone who's pitched in big moments in the postseason with their in Toronto with the backs up against the wall. So I feel like Romano should definitely be on the postseason roster. When it comes to Joe Ross, that's a different question. Do they end up DFA him, cutting their loss, or do they keep him too? Right? I think those are the biggest questions. If they do one of them, both of them, or none of them, when it comes to Romano and Ross, whether getting rid of them in the next couple weeks, is that going to happen or not? That's my honestly most interesting part of it.
Yeah, when you look at how the Phillies, you can have a maximum of 13 pitchers on a roster after in the playoff roster, and I obviously they do have yeah, it is 12 pitchers they have on the roster right now. So you look at it, I believe Max Lazar might probably be that first guy out. You think, oh well, shoot, well Max Lazar has had more consistent outings than Romano this year. Actually, but when you look at expected numbers page and more Statcast statistics, Romano is the better guy there. And I think just Lazar being the rookie, I don't want him to put it in that situation this season. So now I would be fine just catting him. Max Lazar, maybe not on the playoff roster. Now, let's say something happens to, let's say a pitcher does get hurt, they need to fill that roster spot. Obviously, there is no minor league season. And once you get to the playoffs, so I say, hey, look to Max Lazar. Hey, if somebody gets injured next round, you're up, man. And so that's your first guy on. I think Joe Ross might be that first guy out. The Phillies are going to hold on to him as long as they really can before they let him go. Because I think he's turned into a pitcher that's no better than what like Carlos Hernandez was earlier this year. He's had some more better consistent outings lately, but he's also been in like their last leverage guy and just these meaningless moments, essentially. So yeah, he's really just a mop up duty guy for now. The Phillies are probably going to hold on to him as long as they can in September, and they'll say no, that's enough. Thank you for your service, and uh, they'll cut ties.
I feel like it all just depends though on what they decide to do this weekend when it comes to Nola. Because if it is, not a Phantom IL for Wheeler, not a Phantom IL for Ranger, I think Joe Ross is the odd man out at the end of the day. Uh, he has been when he's good, he's very good. He's just had a couple bad outings, but I think he is the odd man out in this situation when it comes to Sunday. But we'll see on Sunday what the Phillies decide to do because Nola's coming back. He had an 11 strikeout outing in AAA against Toronto's AAA team on Tuesday. So again, it's a good sign to see Nola. He looks much better than what he did earlier this season. The key for him is limiting home runs and extra base hits, and he'll have consistency. The home runs is the biggest issue for Nola, and if he can limit those, I feel like he'll be fine.
For sure, for sure. I think he get the home runs because pitchers find a way to essentially solve his. They look his changeup, just find a way to leave that changeup over the middle and pounce on it. Same with his four seam and his four seamer. Oh yeah, I think Nola just get classic era Nola. That'd be huge for this team. Come in here as the fifth starter, be your confident game three starter, which is likely going to be potentially could be on the road or at home for a game three as I said. So
But
yes, for
also,
now.
depending on where the Phillies land in the postseason, in the NLDS, they'll only need three starters. Because this year we're on TBS, and we have we have multiple off days. So the series starts on Saturday, off day on Sunday, Monday game, off day on Tuesday, Wednesday game 3. So your game 1 starter could be ready to go for game 4 on Thursday. That's what happened back in 2023 with the Phillies and the Braves. The Phillies only used Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola. Ranger came back for game 4. If that's the case, I would have to think it's Sanchez, Wheeler, and Nola going for those 3 games for the Phillies.
Definitely, I think, and it also depend. It will depend on that. How guys are used in that way. If they end up being a wild card, let's say, said the way that rotation works. And I think when you look at a fourth starter for an NLCS, obviously that guy who is your fourth starter that'll be his first start in almost 3 weeks. So you got to make sure. I hope Caleb Cotham and the pitching coach is giving these guys doing the right bullpen to keep some intensity up, so these guys can still stay in game shape. Let's say because obviously these guys if they come off let's say almost 15 days no pit without a start could be detrimental. But yeah, that's Caleb Cotham's assignment. I trust him with that there. If we are in NLCS game 4, but obviously cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah, I think as of right now, it can be. I think every team is gonna have to concern about their starting pitching going to the playoffs. Let's say because you obviously you need 3 guys first off, but at the end of the day, those guys have a job to get done. I look around the rest of the league, in the National League, like no, whoever your first shoot at Imanaga. If I was a Cubs fan, am I really? be confident this guy. Oh shoot, he's going to come in here and shove in a playoff round. And yeah, as I said, look through and the Mets. Like that's even a worse starter situation there. And
It's
even the
ugly
Brewers,
in New York. It's
yeah,
ugly.
even with the Brewers with Quinn Priester. I mean, he's been great this year, and then he's had some pretty rough outings. You got to make sure you get the right Quinn Priester for game one. Obviously, then obviously they have Quintana too. So I mean, oof, I mean, just Phillies need they face Quintana in the playoffs again. I hope they'd figure out now. Yeah, the right approach to have to him.
Yeah,
So
the
yeah,
crazy
let's
thing with Milwaukee, though, I don't even think they'll face one of them because they have the Mizorowski. He would probably get one of the starts. You have Brandon Woodruff, who's been in the postseason multiple times, and you have Freddie Peralta. Those are your first three starters. And you could honestly go bullpen game in game four for Milwaukee. Milwaukee's in a good position. But I don't think they're the best team in the National League. And that's where the Phillies need to capitalize this year because I think this is their best chance to win a World Series that they've had, besides being 2 wins away from a World Series. I think this year, I can't really say there's a team that is 100% better than the Phillies at this point in the season.
let's say. I mean, October ball is October ball. I've said this in probably multiple episodes now. No, it's however you show up in October. And as I said, it's not the best team that wins; it's the right team. So if you're gonna, so yeah, you can win a world. You don't win a World Series on paper. You win it on the baseball field.
Yeah, you do. And we've seen that this year. On paper, the Dodgers would be the best team. And right now, they're a wild card team.
Yeah, that's
And they got
insane.
And they got swept by the Angels twice. That's embarrassing, honestly. It's not like the Angels are that good of a team. Yeah, but you get swept twice. All right.
Yeah, getting beat by a team twice. That's an ugly one there. And
Mhm.
that
My
says something about a
MVP would
team.
never get swept by the Angels twice in a season. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Even though that MVP of ours right now is three for his last 28, um, he'll get back into it. Streaky
Yeah,
hitter goes cold. Stuff
we need to
happens.
push good narratives. He's hit 2 home runs in this past 6 games, so that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, I think it's what Cal Raleigh has those same stretches too, and he's probably going to win the American League MVP.
He has to. I think he
And
has
living
to, honestly.
Cal Raleigh, he may get a shot or two at Citizens Bank Park, but we'll see
We'll
for
see
now.
that. That's going to be a show to watch for when Seattle comes in this upcoming week. Should be an interesting series with them. We'll see Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Luis Castillo on the bump for Seattle in that order against Ranger Suarez if he is still healthy, Christopher Sanchez, and Jesus Luzardo. That is this upcoming week, Monday through Wednesday at Citizens Bank Park. A big 3-game series there. And then obviously this weekend is the Nationals for 4 games starting tonight. But that's going to be it for this episode, I think, unless you have anything else you want to add before we get out of here.
Nope, those are all the points I needed there.
Yep. So Phillies in Washington for 4, then at home against Seattle for 3. We'll be back after the Seattle series. Thank you, everyone, for listening to episode number 5 of the podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you, guys.